Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Sunday afternoon in the beautiful Bansko in Bulgaria. We are sitting here in the mountains. Today I have Ben with me. Ben and I have been vibe coding all month in this nice little village. And when we arrived here, there was basically nobody. And during this month that we were here, a lot of people came and went. But one thing was consistent, and it was us vibe coding and also kind of basically getting everyone else into vibe coding, and it became really a thing here. And I think it's super cool to see the evolution of how people got interested into vibe coding over the past few months, but now also in real life to see how vibe coding is actually taking over mindshare for everyone around us. So that's super interesting. Ben is a bit further in his vibe coding journey than I, so I would love to have a little conversation with Ben on his journey, his products, what he's been building, and that's what you're gonna learn today. But first, Ben, welcome.
Hi.
Hey, let's open a beer
Let's crack
because
it
it's
open.
Sunday afternoon.
All right.
Um, our breaks are for beers. Boom.
There you
There you
go.
go.
Thank you. Yeah, it's funny. You were like one of the first people I met in Bonsko, and I was like, "Who wants to do a cold plunge?" Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. And here we are. We basically started vibe coding that afternoon, right?
Yeah.
Oh, we did the cold plunge, and then like literally that afternoon, you started getting on to Bolt, Lovable, and then we'll talk about where you're at now. But
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. It was kind of funny because I arrived on, I barely had any sleep, and I saw someone posting on WhatsApp, who wants to do a cold plunge? And I'm like, ah, it's early to do that cold plunge tomorrow. I need to catch up some sleep. But then some small voice in my head said, "No, someone who wants to do a cold plunge, you should just do it. There might be something there." And I did, and it was kind of funny. I remember when we were walking there, I'm say like, you ask what I do. I say, yeah, I'm here to, and I'm thinking about organizing some stuff around vibe coding, getting more into vibe coding, building vibe code fun, which was totally in its first footsteps back then. And yeah, and then you you said, "Oh, me too." Like, what the fuck? It's the universe. So yeah, that's awesome. How do you? I don't know. Mm, let me think.
Sure.
So yeah, maybe to get started, how did you end up here in this village? Because we are in Bansko. They call this basically a nomad hub for like digital nomads in summers and in winters. But if it wasn't for a festival that happened here, I would have never heard of it.
Yeah, yeah. I've basically been traveling for a year now. Left New York about a year ago. Had these two products that I was working on, but just the goal of travel the world, build my companies online, and keep exploring. So I went from Portugal to Sri Lanka. When I was in Sri Lanka, like back in December, January, um, people kept saying Bonsko, Bonsko, and I was like, "What is Bonsko? Like Bulgaria? I don't know anything about this place." And then I went to Vietnam, and then even more people were saying Bansko, Bulgaria. So I was like, I have to check this place out. Nomad Fest was in June, and it sounded like it kind of timed up with where I was going to go next. So here we are.
Awesome. So it wasn't specifically for the festival, it was more for dimensions. You heard it and
Yeah, kind of. Like I've never been to a festival for nomads before, and I
mm,
was just curious to know what it was all about. So I figured, okay, this is the biggest one in the world. May as well start with the biggest
yeah.
Nomad Fest and see what it's all about.
And was the village as expected? The
Yes,
experience?
yeah, yes and no. Like the conferences were, I would say, hit or miss. Some of the talks were better than others, but honestly, in general, like definitely great vibes. A lot of, especially where we're at. You mentioned this small village. We're at this like little co-living, and tons of people there are just vibe coding, which we'll get into, and that's been the most
Hmm.
inspiring part for me as Bonsko is the
Yeah.
co-living and everyone around us.
I agree. I like how you say it's a hit or miss with conferences, but I feel like it's also a hit or miss places where you stay, right?
Yeah.
Because I've traveled for the past 3 years, and I've never really had this group of people around me that are really doing the same, like, or in the same lane as what I'm focusing on at this moment in time. And I think that's very how do you say it? Like it's when something spreads like a virus. Like
Totally.
it's
It's just
ba-
it's contagious, right?
contagious was the word
Yeah.
I'm looking for.
Yeah, yeah,
Indeed,
yeah.
and I've like it's cool to see the evolution as well. Like there's people who were living in or co-living and doing marketing or automations, and over the last 3 4 weeks, we just couldn't shut up about vibe coding, and everyone is a vibe coder now, basically.
Yeah, literally like people in the house who are coaches or working in marketing, but not necessarily like core people who you would think would be getting into vibe coding. They're hitting us up being like, hey, like, can you teach us about this? Like, and they're realizing that it actually is applicable for what they're doing, right? So it's kind of interesting. You don't realize how widespread the applications are
Mm-hmm. No,
for this.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. This is maybe something like the WordPress or no code moment years ago,
Yeah.
where that suddenly everyone was able to create something on the internet, like create a website, right?
Yeah.
That was like the first step of democratizing
Yeah.
that anyone can actually put something out there. And I feel like this may be the next step where that anyone now can actually go from idea to a product. But like talking about no code tools, um, and yeah, we're sitting here in the open. Okay, so there's gonna be people walking past. Hello. Talking about low code tools or no code tools, this is how your journey started, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, about me, I was a product manager. I worked for Amazon. I went to a startup. Startup was not doing so well, and I was like trying to understand what an API was for myself. And I had learned about Bubble. I had tried it a few times. Bubble is like a no-code product. There's a few of them. There's like Bubble, Webflow, Flutterflow. But anyway, I started with Bubble, and I just built this really simple AI cover letter product for the people that had been getting laid off at the startup that I was at. That just were not the startup wasn't doing well, and I was kind of being still at the company, like still there, but on the side, I'm like trying to grow, trying to build and figure out how ChatGPT's API works with Bubbles, no code software. So I'm dragging in buttons and creating this like sign in portal. But again, I don't know how to code, right? I come from like a finance, information systems world, but not coding. Um, and then from there, that was kind of like a 2 year journey of just really learning how to build products using no code. Um, but then, kind of in the last 6 months, AI has gotten so good that now I've kind of moved my products off of Bubble fully, as of 2 weeks actually, and
Hmm.
and now both of my products that are making money out in the world, yeah, they've been just fully vibe coded. So I just like recreated them off of Bubble and into this vibe coded product. Like I used Cursor for that.
Nice.
Yeah,
Okay, so but before we go into the more vibe code talks,
yeah,
you mentioned Amazon, you mentioned startup. Um, I assume a job at Amazon is not a bad thing and it's pretty well paid as well. What makes you first of all decide, hey, I'm gonna leave Amazon, I'm gonna bet on this startup? And then maybe as a next one as well, like what made you then? You already said that the startup wasn't doing that well, but
yeah,
made you pull that trigger of saying, okay, now I'm going to do it myself.
yeah.
Because there is this phenomenon of golden handcuffs, and many people cannot really get out of it. But if you come from Amazon, like I'm assuming those are some golden handcuffs of cuffs as well somehow.
Totally, 100%. Um, yeah, I was there for 6 years, and it was a well-paid job. I wasn't overworked. I just didn't feel like when I woke up in the morning, what I was working on at that company was moving the world, right? Like that I was really kind of making a dent in society and like building products that actually added value. When you're at a company like Amazon, which don't get me wrong, great experience, but we were making such marginal improvements to the bottom line, right? And granted, if you move the bottom line of a company like Amazon
Mm,
by 0.1%, that's still hundreds of millions of dollars. But we were genuinely like kind of, these were basis point movements that we
yeah.
were we were improving the product from. And I just didn't. I felt a little disenfranchised. Um, I had this dilemma, and then one day I was in Costa Rica. I read this article about like what would Jeff Bezos do if he was there, if he was today, and like the year was 2021, and he was there with Web3 kind of coming up. And this article basically said, yeah, Jeff would leave his cushy job wherever he was to build the future, right? To build Web3. Um, Now, little did I know that like maybe Web3 didn't work out at least yet in the pace that we've kind of hoped it would by now. But for me at that point, it was like, okay, this is a technology that feels like it could change the world, and I should be a part of it. And the startup that I was like talking to, they were doing cool things. It was on the blockchain. It also combined this element of ticketing and concerts that I love going to concerts with. So it just felt right. Um, so I think hopefully that answers your question of like why Amazon. It was definitely a tough decision, but it was one of
Mm.
those things like if not, then when. Um, and then yeah, like I guess from there, like with the startup, uh, I was at this startup and we weren't doing so well, but I was kind of holding on and hoping that maybe we would get a new round of funding and that something would supercharge the company. But in the moment, like I also said, well, there's this thing that's called AI, right? We like ChatGPT was exploding. Everyone was using it at their job. At that point, I think it was only GPT 3.5 or
Yes,
something,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And like that was the hot thing.
Hmm.
But I was like, okay, wait, I can actually build a product that's super powerful because you don't need a whole team that's kind of working on this algorithm. You are just tapping into an incredibly powerful API, right?
Hmm.
And AI APIs are like just amazingly powerful at being able to create something that maybe 5 years prior would have taken an entire company to create this like to train a model to create this whole database around something. Now you can just put it into the large language model and this thing is all encompassing, kind of all knowing of so many things in the world.
Hmm.
um, yeah, and so then from there, I was like, okay, let me see if I can make this work. Startup went under, and I just moved to Bali basically for 3 months, and I learned how to like really build a product that could actually be monetized at that point. Because at that time, I had only had little signals that this AI cover letter product that I had, it's called Cover Letter Copilot, that it was going to work out. But then from there, I learned how to do LinkedIn marketing. I learned about SEO and kind of how can I really market this product to the world and show it in a way that it's better than just using ChatGPT alone. Um, yeah,
So that's where the ChatGPT rappers were born, right?
that is where the ChatGPT rappers were born, and
Uh,
it's crazy. That's like been such a debate for so many years. So many people ask me like, "Well, why can't you use ChatGPT?" And it's so interesting. It's almost like a philosophical thing of like, well, what are applications, right? Like they're database wrappers. There's so
yeah,
many things, and like
good
at
point.
the end of the day, it's all about building this user experience around what the AI is, right? The AI alone is not going to do the task. Um, the analogy that I've used, I feel like people don't use Alexa as much anymore, but like a few years ago, at least in the U.S., like a lot of people would either have their Google Home or their
Hmm.
Alexa, and they would have
Yeah,
conversations with
yeah.
that before ChatGPT, right? And the answer that I always gave people kind of back in the day was, well, if you're going to order a toothbrush, you don't ask Alexa to, right? That's kind of what a chat GPT conversation would look like. You go to Amazon.com and you go and you look for the toothbrush and you find the one that makes the most sense based on your needs,
Yeah.
right? And that's also what like a user interface looks like. And that's kind of what a GPT wrapper is. It's a user interface on top of just the AI API.
Yeah,
Yeah,
solving one specific problem instead of being a general problem
totally.
solver.
100%. Yeah.
Have you ever met Jeff Bezos by any chance?
No,
No, never had
never
the
met him.
chance.
Never met him.
Never had the chance to meet the guy that made you quit working for him.
Never met him. During COVID, like right when COVID happened, I got put on like a special project where I was like supposed to aggregate this information about like how many people at Amazon were getting tested on a daily basis. And like apparently my reports were sent to Jeff. I don't know. But me alone, no. Unfortunately, I
Yeah,
haven't.
like that's what they say, or what we
That's
know
what they
from
say.
external is that he loves that people write their things down,
Yeah.
right? Like if you cannot write, you cannot really express or communicate. That's his vision.
Totally, yeah, yeah. Like there are no PowerPoints at Amazon, right?
Mm,
I never saw a PowerPoint when I was there in my 6 years. It's all about just documents, 6-page papers, right? And he's big on just being able to synthesize information, like what your conviction is, whether it's a PRD on like this new conveyor belt system that's going to make our fulfillment centers 5% more efficient or something like that. Like you write these white papers, and these white papers will hopefully like embrace kind of what you're trying to convey. I got a bug.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you think that that approach of working, for example, this detailed writing and clearly communicating what you want or what you think or what your hypothesis is,
Yeah.
like that helps you in becoming a vibe coder?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've never thought about that. Um, I think my work as like a product manager 100% lent itself well to this this new kind of prompt way of coding, right? Where you are not sitting there and kind of trying to like think about the logic. You are trying to write user stories and acceptance criterias and like just say like how do you think this thing should work? And you need to articulate it extremely clearly, but also you need to have this awareness around like, well, what do I think the AI can do versus what it can't do, and don't push like not trying to overly set boundaries. So I think a lot of PM work is kind of managing
Hmm.
expectations and reading the room and all of that. Um, and in a weird way, when you're working with an AI, you are also reading the room to try to understand like what can this AI do today, and it constantly changes. By the way, like a new model comes out, and you're like, oh yeah, that thing can do that, but this version of it couldn't do it. Um, but yeah, no, that's a really good question. I never even thought about it that way.
And if you would start over your vibe coding journey today,
Yeah.
like you start from scratch, you don't have any products yet, how would you approach it, or what would you do differently than you're doing right now?
Yeah. Um, I mean, I think just like understanding the basics and just trying and failing is truly the best way to like build a business, build a product. Whether you're vibe coding it, whether you're using no code, whether you're hiring developers, like building it in like a lean way and just shipping as fast as possible. That to me is the biggest um, is kind of the best methodology, right? It's this lean startup methodology. Um, but on top of that, like it really is about kind of being curious and like ensuring that you're always moving on to like kind of that next technology. And it's weird to say because some people are like, no, pick your tech stack and just stick with it, and that is true to an extent. But also when these things are getting orders of magnitude better between models and models, it's not just about like, oh, I'm going to be React and like that's it. Like totally pick your like kind of tech stack in terms of building products, but when it comes to processes and which AIs you're using to build, I think you got to just keep being hungry for like the next thing because
Hmm.
they're just so much better than the last one, or at least that's where we're at now. And
I think that's a great point. Like being
yeah.
hungry for knowing what's the current best way of doing something is important too, because sometimes you can talk to an AI and it's gonna give you a plan,
Yeah.
but sometimes you gotta interfere and say, "Hey, why are you mentioning this thing? Like we're building in Next.js, for example. Why are you mentioning this and this?" So it is important that you know what tools to use for what.
Mhm.
The AI will probably know it, but sometimes it's still gonna take a wrong path and you got to jump in there.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's this balancing game, and it's trial and error, and it's also cutting your losses, right? And knowing when to
Mm,
stop. Um,
sunk cost fallacy.
Sunk cost fallacy, and but also being able to like literally saving your work, right? Like I feel like all of us back in the day were so accustomed to saving stuff, and then this thing called autosave came out,
Yes, yes,
right? And
yes.
autosave was like, oh yeah, I don't need to save my work because it like is saving repeatedly all the time.
Yeah.
And now when it comes to this, you kind of do have to autosave again, or you have to save manually again, right? Because
Yes.
by the order of pushing to GitHub and making sure that your code is there so you can move on to the next feature.
That's one of my learnings the last 2 weeks. I think it's like learning at least the basics of software engineering, or actually just saving to
Yeah,
GitHub. Not I'm not gonna call that software engineering,
yeah,
but yeah, it's an important step that if you just jump in and you're gonna try stuff, you're probably gonna skip over this very basic general thing that you should actually do.
Yeah.
every moment that you make something new. And yeah, that's what I would recommend as well after being into building for a few weeks now. Like, save your things, learn the basics, learn where to click, where you can click and not click in cursor, what files you should or shouldn't touch, as well as save enough to GitHub. And installing MCPs, for example, is another thing that's gonna make you much more productive, which I think we're only just getting started on that realm in vibe coding.
For sure.
Same for, I saw you watching a video, context engineering. Prompt engineering back in the days when ChatGPT just came out was this new big thing. Oh, all jobs are gonna die. You become a prompt engineer. Now they're saying vibe coding is dead. Become a context engineer.
Yeah.
I think personally, context engineering probably is more like it's gonna make, if you know how to engineer context, you're gonna be a much more effective vibe coder. I see it more like that. It's not one or the other. It's like it goes hand in hand. And
Mm.
the better you are in providing context, which is actually prompt engineering, you just plug in certain data points, the more effective you're going to become. And speaking from my own experience, over the past 3 weeks, I think I learned so much on a software and languages and coding thing, like just by watching the AI doing things, like giving it a
Mm.
plan, giving it an idea, letting it run. A week later, you figure out, holy shit, my code base sucks. There's way too much stuff, and I let it do way too many things. I should have given it restrictions or a better plan. And then sometimes you don't have to like think too much, and sometimes you just gotta cut it off and start over. Like, by doing something for a week, you're gonna have more ideas. You're gonna have a better vision of what you want. Just translate that new vision with the earlier documents, and then start over. Sometimes starting over is better than trying to fix.
Yeah, and this is kind of one of my key tips that I give people when like they're just getting started with like using cursor is like there's this thing called checkpoints, right? Where you it's kind of like the autosave feature within cursor itself. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. And like rather than if let's say you want to move that button to the top right, but it didn't really quite do that, maybe in ChatGPT you might be accustomed to being like, "Oh no, that's good. That's pretty good, but you actually didn't move it all the way over to the right." And
Hmm.
instead of doing kind of that and re-prompting again, it's actually better, at least I found and I know others have found this too. It's actually better to like restore back to a previous one and then prompt it more clearly and be like, "I want you to put that button on the top right and make sure that it's actually an all the way on the top and all the way on the right," and kind of giving specifics. Um, if not, then the AI might go down these weird paths where it's just like it thinks it understands what's going on, but the reality is we don't know exactly how this AI how it's doing this work, right? It's getting to the intended results pretty well, but how it does it we don't know. So sometimes it's better to just go back
Hmm.
and then try again.
Yeah. I mean, with the cursor agents, you sometimes see what changes it makes, but now it's getting abstracted more and more again. With, like, for example, using Claude code,
True.
it just goes and does things and then comes back and it's like, ah, fixed it. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
great. I have no idea what you did, but it seems like it works.
exactly.
So
Exactly.
yeah, it's fun. It's fun to press enter all day and see that you make progress. It's
Yeah.
great, and it all comes back to great planning, a great idea, great planning, great instructions. The better the instructions and the better the context, the better the results will be.
Yeah.
And I find it funny that there is still some negatives around this as well, like people saying vibe coding is an AI slop factory, and yeah, I kind of agree.
Yeah.
Like 5 minutes ago, I said this. Like, my code base looks like shit. But also, I think, like, if you are there with your brains and you learn from these mistakes that a slop factory gives, like,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna learn and you're gonna make progress as a programmer or developer as well. Like, you're not just a prompter anymore. Um, y- you're actually learning the tools. You're learning like commands.
Mm-hmm.
It's not nothing. Like, I don't know how many people know about these things, to be honest, in the whole world.
True. Yeah. I mean, we've just scraped the surface, right? Like, if you look at all of your friends and look at their personal websites, right? almost all
Mhm.
of them haven't vibe coded it, even though it could take a few hours to do that,
Yeah.
right? Like they could easily build a beautiful personal website, but most of them don't. Most people in this world don't have personal websites. Most people also, if they do, they're still very legacy old websites that are built on like Wix or Squarespace or something like that, where they just took a template,
Mhm.
as opposed to like for me, right? Like I'm thinking, oh, you can literally build your brand and have the color scheme and everything match kind of the vibe that you want to get out of by just vibe coding it, right? So it's interesting about like this whole like concept of adoption of over time and I don't know, like I'm curious to see how quickly it adopts, or maybe a lot of people try it and then they're like, oh well, it kind of didn't do what I wanted it to do, and then they give
I
up.
I think
Yeah.
there's also this thing of people trying but then not achieving the results within the time frame that they think they would achieve the results, so then letting it for a bit. Like,
Mm.
let's say I have a business, everything is set up, people talk about vibe coding and they say move your website to vibe code it, it's going to be more efficient, it's going to be better.
Yeah.
I put in half a day of work, I don't get anywhere, and all I have is bugs.
Yeah.
And then they just leave it on the shelf for another few months until something pops up again, they get reminded, and they might try again, and maybe or maybe not they actually continue their journey into vibe coding or into improving their website, online presence, or whatever. But that maybe also brings me to next question is, how long did it take for you to go, like, first to realize, oh, I gotta move from Bubble to vibe code my platforms, but then also from realization to how long did it take to actually execute?
Yeah. So I started using Cursor back in I think it was either January or February of this year.
Yeah.
The year's 2025. And I started building this product like for 2 months. I was just grinding on something that was like, imagine if Stripe had a baby with Gmail, and it was something where like you could manage all your customer support emails in it. It was a really complicated app, and I had never vibe coded anything basically before, and I just decided to start with a really complicated one, right? And so then come March, I'd been working on this for almost 2 months at that point. One night I'm like, can't sleep, and I'm like, wait a second, my interview product is on Bubble. It's doing well, but there are emails that I get every few days from someone that says it did not work. And I don't have the tools to debug it because Bubble doesn't give me the tools. Like, I just didn't know what all the issues were. I knew that there were some issues, but also at the end of the day, like, I couldn't really build it in the with the design and with the buttons and the feel that I really wanted this product to be felt as. So I started building it. I think the initial MVP probably took me, I want to say 3 weeks
Yeah.
to launch with. Um, and my goal was kind of to get to like feature parity, right? So I was thinking, okay, well, what do people really want? They really want this one page within my application. So it was kind of cool. Like I part of the application lived on Bubble, part of it lived on Vibe
Hmm.
Code. I tested it, right? I turned it on for a day. People were like, hey, this works, but this actually doesn't. I'm like, oh yeah, let me fix that real quick, and like I'd fix it, right? So having customers that are emailing you and being like, hey, that older version of that you had, that one actually had this and this new version doesn't. Can you put that in? And they're kind of almost PMing me for the
Yeah,
first
yeah, yeah.
like 2 or 3 days. I'm just getting the features back up to like what the Bubble version looked like, and then slowly but surely I would move other pages to this new version.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, like the whole process probably took a month,
Okay.
and then the second one, since I knew what I was doing, like that only had taken a week, right?
Yeah.
Because it was like I was like, okay, I took one stab at it. I really understood how Cursor worked. Failed project, but I understood how to use the technology, how to connect MCPs, how to push to GitHub, how to lock up the security keys and all of that. But I just didn't. The actual product itself was just really really complicated. And yeah, ever since it's every time you build, the next one is easier than the last one. That's what
Yeah.
I've seen.
Zooming in on this 3 to 4 weeks
Yeah.
to go from from nothing vibe coded to deployed and having the product there. What made it take 3 to 4 weeks? It's not just GitHub and MCP figuring out, right? Like, how come that 4 weeks seems a bit long even for
Yeah, yeah.
an, or is it a very complex product?
It's a pretty complex product. There's like transcription that goes on,
Mm,
right? So you're using like one service for that. You're using another service for that one. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. Like at the end of the day, I needed to make sure that it was really, really efficiently running. Honestly, a lot of people echo this sentiment. Like the hardest things are like the things that you would think would be the easiest,
yeah.
right? Like the design is actually really not that hard.
No. No.
You create a design system, you give Claude like a bunch of examples of good products that you like, and it can do a pretty good job with it. Like authentication is a problem, can be a problem for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Connecting to Google, right? Another one is just Stripe, right? Connecting to Stripe so that when you load a page, it's checking their subscription. That takes time, and I don't know. There's all these
Yeah.
kind of connections that you have to do, and then testing also, right? So, um, could I have done it maybe in 2 weeks? Maybe, but at the end of the day, like, yeah, I'm learning as
Yeah.
I'm going, and we're all learning as we're
I mean,
going.
you
So,
you went from 3 to 4 weeks to 1 week,
yeah,
so
exactly.
that's a 3 to 4x improvement
True.
after building it once. So
Yeah, exactly.
that's I call that good progress.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
No,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
that. If there's like, if you would say there, these three things were the three things that I will never forget again, or will save me so much time next time I'm building a product, what are those?
When it comes to, I mean, when it comes to, I guess, tools, like I would definitely recommend someone if they're going to build a product, like a production ready product. I know Lovable and Bolt are mentioned, and those are great for getting the light bulb to be turned on in your brain. But when it comes to like actually executing, Cursor makes a lot of sense, right? So, like in terms of what tech stack I use Supabase, I use Vercel, I use Cursor, and then I use like various kind of AI APIs for that. So I would definitely recommend folks to like look at Vercel and Supabase, mainly because not only are they like pretty solid products at a, I think, a pretty good price, but they're AI native, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they understand what AI is all about, and they're building their products in a way where the documentation is so
Yeah.
readable by Cursor, by Claude, by all these things that you can just implement faster. So that's definitely one. Two is like backup, save to like GitHub very frequently, right? I already said that one, but that's super important. I would recommend anyone to like have Perplexity as like as your co-pilot, right? So Perplexity is kind of my product manager.
Hmm.
Perplexity is the person who is going out and like looking at which APIs I should be using, looking at, hey, is this thing possible that I'm thinking about? And then Perplexity might be like, oh yeah, you can do it that way actually. Or Perplexity might say, no, actually, this might be pretty complicated, right? Because it helps me understand how complicated things are. Highly recommend that. And then, a lot of people talk about writing PRDs, product requirements documents. Use ChatGPT to like write a good PRD, literally have a conversation kind of back and forth on what the features are that you want. But like the number one feature that I tell everyone is like just ship something quickly, right? Like just get it out there to the world. Um, because I can't tell you how many times I've thought a feature was going to be that killer feature that was going to get my conversion rates up 30%, and like nobody cared about it. And then that little thing that I built that, I didn't really think would be that helpful ends up being that killer feature that
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like
yeah.
seeing, right? So you really don't know what sticks until like you try a bunch of things. But to me, launching is just like the best way. Like having customers is such a blessing for anyone who's building, because other people are vibe checking them all the
Yeah.
time, right? Like, yeah,
No, I like that, and I think that especially number one where you mentioned Vercel, Super Base, Cursor, like they all have pretty generous free plans to
yeah,
get started as well. Like a Super Base, I haven't had to pay for my Superbase yet. I don't really have any users yet, but like, or Vercel, same.
Yeah.
Like, so anyone can get started, and I think it's only whenever you're gonna get actually some traction or some people submitting and the database is gonna get filled up, that's when you gotta start paying. So that's another nice little advantage of those AI native tools. And then you mentioned Perplexity and ChatGPT, which makes me think, what does your subscription bill look like at the end of the month? Can you give
Yeah.
us some numbers there?
Yeah. I think most of my costs go to my transcription service that I pay for. I use DeepGram, and so they have like they like transcribe in real time a conversation, and they use it. I use it in my interview app. So that's like probably $100 to $200. But other than that, Cursor maybe $50 to $100 a month. Claude Code I just upgraded, so that's another 100. And I would say all my other kind of AI services are like 60 to 80 more dollars. Like Vercel's 20, Superbase is 20,
Hmm.
stuff like that. Um, yeah, I
And
don't
how
know.
many users do you have across?
I think I've got like between both products, how many people have signed up? It's somewhere between 500 to 700,000. Yeah.
700,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can run these things with a $20
Yeah.
Superbase and Versailles subscription.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's I think it depends on uh how much workload your app requires, right? But and if they're all coming to the site at the same time, then sure,
Yeah.
you'd have to pay more. But maybe my super base is like $40 now.
Mm.
It's really not that much, and it's super reactive, right? It can scale with the business. If I have more users, I literally just get an email that says, hey, you're hitting your limit, you need to upgrade to like a higher workload product,
Yeah.
and then you're doing that. So hey, what's
Hello.
up?
You
Oh,
went to the
nice.
cold plunge? Nice.
Cool. That's our friend Joy. Yeah. Um, so yeah, I don't know. Like it's pretty cheap, man. It's super affordable. Um,
So it's really not something you got to think of like, oh, my cost is this. I have to make sure that I upcharge and get a margin on what users pay because the user cost me this. Like that's not even a question in your head.
no, it's really not. I don't know how much this would cost if I built this the legacy way with like
Yeah.
AWS and all of that. But based on like the quotes that I've given people, like developers that I've had this conversation with, they kind of can't believe how cheap it is. And I don't know either. Like I'm just like, yeah, this is the bill, and like I'm one of those people. I'll figure it out if it becomes a problem, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
until it becomes a problem, I'm gonna run with it. So
Yeah.
it's been pretty good so far. Yeah.
Awesome. And since we're talking about numbers, and
Yeah.
since a lot of indie hackers love to share or hear numbers, and I think there's also something motivational, like hearing the story of
Yeah.
what has a person done on his own. Like, are you willing to share some numbers of what these products make in terms of like monthly revenue?
Yeah. My cover letter product makes about 7,000 a month, and my interview product makes about 8,000 a month.
Wow.
So it kind of changes depending on the month, right? And cover letter is I would say a more profitable. Yeah, definitely a more profitable product in the sense that I don't have like an influencer that's kind of posting on my behalf. It's like organic traffic. Um, but yeah, the interview one as well. Like it's a pretty viral product.
Mm-hmm.
There are costs associated with that. So when I say these numbers, like that's not my like bottom
Yeah.
line, but it's definitely more profitable than like a drop shipping business, right?
Yeah.
On a revenue per basis.
And then like how long did it take you? Like 10K a month is like for many people this North Star metric when they
Yeah.
get started, right? As an indie hacker or as anyone who wants to build a business online, whatever.
Yeah.
Like how long did it take you to go from starting to build your own products to actually hitting that?
Yeah. I think it was like almost exactly a year.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was 1 year. Um, I kind of, I invested a lot into like LinkedIn marketing, and that got me to that number. And then kind of since then, like the cover letter product has gone down somewhat. But I've also kind of had that mindset of, okay, let me move on to this next product. That product is still running, but can I get it to like 30K? Maybe, I don't know, but I think I have a better chance of like being able to have a few of these products
Mm,
working in tandem. Um, but yeah, like it was 1 year, and I mean, don't get me wrong, it was like a grinding of a year.
yeah,
But I did get there, yeah.
nice. It sounds a bit like vibe coding is the new lifestyle business.
Yeah, maybe
Where,
we'll see. I'm so curious to see how this shakes out. I think, like you said, there's a lot of people that are building AI slop and all of that, but like at the end of the day, it's so true. Like taste really does matter, right?
oh yeah.
And like taste is not fully, it's really not there in AI. It is on the UI standpoint, but it's not in everything else. And there's so much that goes into a business, from pricing, from like how you're marketing the product, so many other things. I um, and I don't know, like I would love to see how many indie hackers there are in this world today versus 4 years from now. The year's
Hmm.
2029. Like, are we gonna have 3 times as many indie hackers? I don't know.
Could just as well be.
It could.
Yeah.
Let me ask you. So how's vibecode.fun going?
I mean, I got more questions for you, but
Okay. All right. All right. All right. Fine.
no, but I kind of lost it when you asked your question. So yeah, Vibe Got the Fun is going great. But the thing is, I've been sitting and brewing on this egg since basically
It's
March.
okay. You can come by.
Yes,
Yeah.
sure. Say hi to the camera. Hello. So I've been brewing on this idea ever since I bought the domain name basically in March. Like, what can I do? How should I build it? So, like, in terms of documentation and preparation, it's been really on point. The actual building has only started about a month ago. And like I said, yesterday I started over. So I've been basically building for 3 weeks, figuring out all these things that you should and shouldn't do, like an authentication, which I implemented on day two, which fucked up my whole flow and with my testing and all of that stuff. Like, those are things you gotta a wall you gotta hit before you know that you shouldn't put that wall there in the beginning. And I'm very happy that I started over basically because right now I've built in one weekend what I built in 2.5 weeks before. So I see that as progress. I see that as a as actually getting somewhere. I'm not sitting here crying that I wasted 3 weeks. I'm kind of happy with like what I learned, what I did, and the MVP is basically ready for people to submit their app. So you'll be able to submit your thing
Nice.
today, tonight, tomorrow,
Cool.
whenever you got time. And then it's on me to fix the last tweaks, like a UI. I know like the images are not there yet, and like it's not all the functionalities that I hoped for. But like you say as well, like it's important to strip down, get the MVP out, because if you don't have any users, your project is not valuable anyway. So who are you building for if there's nobody using it? And that was actually my next question that I wanted to ask, because you mentioned LinkedIn marketing, you mentioned some other marketing. Like, distribution is key. If you
Yeah.
don't have distribution, nobody's using your project or product, you're not gonna make any money. So what's your take on distribution, and how did you get your initial users, but also how do you continue like getting that distribution and getting those new users?
Yeah, it's all trial and error, right? It's literally just going down all these alleyways, and one out of every 7 alleyways actually has something down there. And it's about placing bets. So, um, my initial users, I was like super lucky. There was this like fortuitous situation where I happened to be at a TED Talk in Boston. I had just gotten laid off from this startup. I was the last employee there, and I was sitting in the front row of this TED Talk. Again, it was sponsored by Forbes, and I happened to be sitting next to the CEO of Forbes, right? And this guy is like 75 years old. He needed help kind of connecting to the Wi-Fi in the building, and I helped him, connect his phone to the Wi-Fi. I told him what I was doing, and then I got his business card and explained like, look, it would be awesome if Forbes could cover letter Copilot, this product that I had built. Fast forward 4 weeks later, and like Forbes had written an article about cover letter. So that kind of changed it from, I would say, 15 to 20 users, mainly my friends, people at this company that I was working with,
Mm-hmm.
to now other people around the world. From there, I had like used an email list of like 2,000 journalists in the tech world, and I had just like sent them personalized emails, kind of, tried to personalize them as well as I could for many of them, saying like, hey, I'm Ben, and I built this AI cover letter product. I know you're covering X, Y, and Z in this space, and I thought it might be interesting
Smart.
if you could write an article about this, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And by the way, I've already given you access, right? So I would just whitelist all of their emails and put it in so that when they went to the site, they weren't hit with like a paywall to be asked to pay
Yeah.
to pay. Um, from there, LinkedIn marketing was huge. I would work with people to kind of help Cover Letter Copilot and Interview Sidekick, both these products, be mentioned in various posts. SEO, then I found someone who was my first great employee, and he understood the landscape. He understood how to, you know, target keywords so that my products were actually viewed online.
Mm.
So between SEO, between LinkedIn, Instagram marketing, between journalist outreach and other things, it really was just like a matter of trying so many things. And even today, so um, I'm really embracing this whole vibe marketing world that we live in now, where when you're vibe coding, it's not just about like, how can I build the best product application, right? But it's also about like being able to translate your landing page to every major language in the world, or offering free tools. So now Google prioritizes free tools over just blogs. And so if
Hmm.
you can build a free tool that helps people write their LinkedIn headline, that there's a pretty good chance that could be viewed on Google.
Oh.
Um, Free tools have been another powerful thing that I've tapped into, and I don't know, so many more that I'm not even thinking about right now. But
I'm seriously thinking if
yeah,
I actually ever ended up on your app
yeah,
somewhere in the past 2.5 years.
it's possible.
It's highly possible
Yeah,
for sure.
that's funny.
Yeah, that would actually be funny. That's like every time I get into this arc, and actually I feel like one of the first things I vibe coded was a Google plugin. It was on a day that crypto was crashing, and I'm kind of obsessed with crypto Twitter, like scrolling there every day.
Yeah,
And I'm like seeing quite a lot of posts or tweets about like, oh, it's time to search a job. And I'm like, hey, interesting. All of these people are searching for a job now,
yeah,
and same. I had like a bunch of tabs open of like, I'm looking around. I'm just looking around. I'm interested, like, see what's in the market. And at this point, I see like I have all these tabs open. There's no way I'm gonna either fill them all in or save them somehow manually and even add notes. So I talked to Claude and I'm like, hey, this is my problem. I want a Chrome plugin that automatically saves these web pages for job offerings to my Notion database.
mm,
It took me 45 minutes to get it locally published so that I could use this job, actually a job tracker, I call it basically a job tracker or a job saver.
yeah,
So it's a bit of the same niche.
yeah. That's awesome.
Hmm.
Yeah, like, this is the risk when it comes to like building SaaS products too. Is like, are we gonna live in a world 5 years from now where everyone's just gonna be like, hey, these are the 5 problems I have. Can you build me 5 applications
Oh yeah,
that are gonna do everything that I would have normally
yeah.
paid a SaaS company to do? Very possible. It's very possible that that's the case. Um, so I don't know, but that's awesome for you, and like, I
I
the
was my main thing wasn't even I want to get this published. I want to get
yeah,
users. I was that this was an eye opener, and it like showed me how easy it is to build something
yeah,
and to get something up and running.
totally,
It took me literally from idea to being using it 45 minutes,
yeah.
and that's not even exaggerated. Like it's literally 45 minutes or less. I still remember that day. I'm like that's when it clicked. Like yeah, vibe coding. I've been creating React components to showcase certain financial models, for example. Like that's pretty easy in Claude, right?
Yeah,
But then to go from these little components with some buttons or sliders to actually something that you
Yeah.
can use and integrate, and other people could do the same if they just install it,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's where it clicked for me. And that's, I think, the day after I bought Vibe Code of Fun.
So
So,
how has your conviction in vibe coding changed from like the day you said in March you bought vibecode.fun versus today?
um, well, I mean, my conviction only grew, to be honest, and especially the last month. Like when we see how we arrive and you're vibe coding, but then like another software developer who lives with us in the house suddenly also get vibe coding, and then another friend, like we tell about Claude Code, and suddenly says this is the best thing ever happened to me in my life. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then we organize a meetup in our garden, and we call it the Vibe Code Meetup, and suddenly there's 40 people that are interested in vibe coding, and it's a village of like 7,000 people, of which like maybe 700 nomads.
Yeah.
So 40 people is quite a lot of people on that demographic. So I think all of these things contributed to my conviction only growing. Um, you like, and I thought about this today actually, like about conviction in this. You hear so many high level people and capital allocators and influential people mentioning vibe coding, vibe coding, vibe coding. It's not just a little hype. It doesn't even feel like it's like the crypto industry, which always been looked at as, oh, it's those people, right? Like vibe coding is something that anyone can do, and it's anyone's life. Like it's gonna make anyone's life easier
Hmm.
in one way or another. And I think those that ignore it, they will at one point in the future start using it. If it's then being called vibe coding or not, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like it could just as well get a negative connotation after a while, just like Web3, for example, is being looked at with like one eye, like what's happening. But my conviction is only growing. I bought the domain because I knew like, oh, I liked vibe coding. I saw it popping up on my timeline. Vibecode.fun, like the original idea was token launchpad, like people could vibe code something, tokenize their apps. That's still something I think of in the future, but that's not the core. Like I kind of want to step away from crypto a little bit, and I think this is a great segue. Like you're still in the product space, startup space. That's what I've always been in. But then allowing vibe coders actually to show what they've built. I think those places are a bit like we don't really have that
Hmm.
yet, so that's the gap I'm trying to fill. Um, and let's see if the conviction is correct. Like, I think in a 3 month time period, you can make a lot of progress. I'm basically 1 month in building this now. We have a platform almost. The next 2 months will be focused on continuing to improve the platform, but also thinking about all these other things like marketing, like onboarding, like organizing events which are going to onboard users. Like there's so much potential because it's so wide and it can be applied to all industries.
Yeah.
A coach can vibe code, a doctor can vibe code, a football player can vibe code, you know?
Yeah.
Anyone can vibe code.
Yeah.
All you need is a phone or a laptop.
Yeah, totally. We went from just prompting to getting responses to now prompting to get like applications, right?
Yes.
So this is like the new way of coding where it's kind of software 3.0, right? Maybe Web
Yes.
3 didn't become what we thought, but software 3.0 is literally,
If you combine these two, you get ownership of
yeah,
software.
true, true, true,
Vibe code of fun.
true. Yeah, there you go. Tokenized ownership. I mean, I could see that being way more applicable in this world. Um, but yeah, like software 3, which is this new kind of term, this new theme, is just this idea of prompting, building products through English instead of building
Yeah.
products through code. And we're kind of abstracting away the code, right? Like the code was
Yeah.
just there because it was easier for computers to read. Well, turns out we actually have this like translator now that's kind of doing that on the fly for us.
Yeah.
Um, so and the other thing that you always remind me about, and I agree, is like this is the worst these models will be, right? So here it is. Their Claude 4 is like the hottest thing when it comes to coding. I'm super excited to see what the next
What's
version
next?
what the next version looks like, and
Yeah.
if it will like be able to understand context fully,
Yes.
which is kind of that thing that we're all waiting for, is just when are we going to have the full contextual understanding of a 50,000 line code base?
Yeah.
Right now, we're reading 200 lines at a time, and the AI is doing a lot of things to kind of concatenate and get an understanding of what your code base looks like. But in the future, I think that these AIs will fully be able to understand the entire code base at any given time.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that moment, to be
Yeah.
honest. That's going to be great. Shall we do a last quick fire round where I'm asking you three different questions and you can just like with a quick answer respond?
Sure, let's do it.
Let's do it. First, I'm also going to check if that thing is actually still recording.
Go for it.
Yeah. 56 minutes.
Nice.
So, quick fire, and I didn't prepare any questions, but I'm gonna make them up on the spot.
Let's
A
do it.
bit like Diary of a CEO asks a question that the previous guest left, you know?
I love it.
But I'm gonna make them up.
Okay.
Later, you can write in my diary a question. I'll ask the next person. Hey,
Ooh, I love it.
let's make this a habit.
Yeah.
But what is one of your habits that you're not really proud of in a sense of like digital consumption? Because everyone has these platforms that they use too much, or like what would you get if you could say switch off? Would you switch off right now?
Yeah. For me, the thing that I've been dealing with is getting on Twitter and not feeling good about myself, or going on YouTube and watching certain types of videos where X 20-year-old person makes $300,000 a month, and there is just this comparison feeling that just doesn't feel healthy for me.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, when is enough enough, and when am I just going to be content with what I have? So I think that's related to this digital consumption world where you're just comparing, but it's something that I'm trying to look inward and say like, well, how can I have a more healthy relationship with understanding that other people are on their own journey and I'm on mine?
Yeah. No, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I think I'm kind of similar there. Like everything you consume is usually like if it ends up on your timeline, it's usually either sensational or bad news, and it doesn't have an impact. And I see social media as like be a creator, don't be a consumer. I think that's a good way to approach it. But like you need to be there to know what's the trends and to stay up to date with everything.
Totally.
What is okay? What is something that you want to learn or explore more, but you never had the time for?
Huh. Um, I want to go on more adventures, right? I've been traveling for a year, and I have rarely taken the time to slow down. I work almost every day. Uh, so with that comes like skydiving, going on the Haijang Loop, going going on this whitewater rafting trip that's going to be 7 days off the grid. I always tell myself, well, let me do that once I feel more solidly about all these businesses that I have, these products. But the more I've gone down that path, I've kind of realized, well, I think a lot of us, whether insert tech CEO will admit it or not, like nobody feels content, right? Especially in this world when things are changing all the time. You just don't know if it's gonna like last for a while or what. So,
Mhm.
for me, it's being able to live more in the moment and accept time away from businesses, from products, and all of that. There is such a mental shift. You know this, I'm sure, as well, when you go from working for someone else versus working for yourself, right? When you're working for yourself, you are fully feeling it 24 hours a day from the moment you go to bed till the moment you wake up. Basically, you're always feeling it. So I want to have a healthier relationship between being able to turn off.
Okay, and I think the last one is in line with this.
Yeah.
It's like if you would have $5 million right now in your bank account, what would you be doing?
Probably the same thing I'm doing right now.
Same thing you're
I
doing right
think
now.
so. I think I would absolutely have a healthier balance and approach to it, where I would say, let me hire some other folks to kind of work on these projects with me. But at the end of the day, like, my goals are to build digital products that add value for other people. That is what gets me excited. When I launch a new product and it's going well, uh, I feel great about it, right? So, um, again, I would love to do some more adventures, some more crazy, random 5 day, like off the grid stuff. But apart from that, I would be doing what I would be doing, what I am right now.
Awesome. Then you're
Yeah,
on the right track.
I think so.
Ben,
Hopefully.
thank you very much. This was awesome.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed it. How was the sunset?
sunset's good.
The
I'm
view
sure
is
the
great.
lighting is good.
You're good. Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks for interviewing.
Yeah,
You
that
got
was
some
good
good
fun.
questions.
Hey, not prepared freestyling this one, so
It's okay. As soon
it
as you
was
put
good
the
fun.
bucket hat on, you're like,
Oh yeah,
you're just
I
in the
should have.
zone
I
for
should
your.
have done it from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh wow, I love the
Honestly,
background.
just even looking out, right? Like, just looking out for 5 minutes and like really just appreciating it. That's something that I want to do more of. I think a lot of us probably want to
Yeah,
do more of. Is just being in the moment and being able to appreciate this amazing landscape that we're in, right?
exactly.
Or where we are. So,
Oh yeah. Nice.
yeah.
Bye.
All right. Thanks, everyone. All right. What was that, like
Nice.
1 hour?
That was 1 hour.